Hello everyone, welcome to the Talking Hub podcast. On today's episode, we have Sophie Johnson, Assistant Professor of Interior Design at CUD, here to share her creative journey in design, her inspirations, and what advice she has for aspiring designers. Enjoy the episode! Hello, Sophie.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
It's
for
a
having
pleasure
me.
to have you. I wanted to ask you first, could you please introduce yourself in one word and why?
I would say one word to describe me would be omnific, which is like creative.
It's a big word.
I think creative, not just in a design sense, but I think probably in a daily sort of way of life sense as well. I suppose when you're in the creative industry, you approach things possibly from a more practical or logical perspective, often looking for solutions. As being a designer, you're essentially designing something that has an output. So I think that's possibly more of a way of life, I think, as a designer, rather than just a job.
Okay.
I think it's all encompassing.
Okay. So what sparked your interest in the creative industries and specifically in interior design?
I was asked this just the other day actually as well, and I think what sparked me, I think when you work in design or when you think about design, even from a school level, when you sort of start, I don't know, with art or design and technology, and then kind of going forward, everything's different. There's nothing that's the same. So it's not the same day. It's not the same. Every project is different. You deal with different people, different teachers. And I think probably from that type of thing, you notice it really from an early age. So design itself, being sort of creativity or being creative, allows you to be imaginative, artistic, technical. You know, all of these aspects all come together.
Okay. So do you feel that you've always had like a creativity in you from a very young age? Is this something you always wanted to do throughout school, or is it something you came across later on in terms of your path and in the interior design world?
Yeah, no, I think creativity has probably always been there. I've always been interested in different things, and I think that's one of the aspects of design or interior design that is underestimated, is that it is a multifaceted discipline. So, you know, one day you're looking at I don't know, trends in office design or something, or how people are working. And obviously with COVID-19, that's had huge impact of changes in lifestyle. You're looking at society, you're not just designing things on pieces of paper, but you're research based as well. Yeah. So it challenges your thought process, and you're always learning something new.
I think there's probably a misconception about interior design that it is just you make a room look pretty and that's it. But I think so much goes into it. There's so many different factors that go into this one.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's massively misunderstood as being sort of often the underdog to architecture to design in general. And I think it's underestimated with the amount of detailing specifically that goes into it. And at the end of the day, we spend, I think, kind of over 80% of our times in buildings and in interiors. So we know as users of spaces what works and what doesn't. And so as designers, we've got to make sure that we create spaces that enhance people's well-being, particularly now, well-being, lifestyle, work output, whatever it might be. Experience is key to interior design.
Definitely. I think as well, through conversations that I had with interior design students over the last week or so, I probably had a different type of understanding of interior design, and they opened my eyes so much. And I remember speaking to one of them and she was telling me like interior design is like graphic design, architecture, research all in one. It's everything in one. It's so detail based and orientated, and like there's just so much more to it than people actually realize. So yeah,
I think that is an underestimation from a student perspective, is that you said it right. They have to be a graphic designer as well. They have to be a visualizer. They have to get the materials. They have to know the dimensions, the ergonomics, the human kind of factor to it. And to bring that all together successfully is often quite a challenge, but very rewarding when you do it right.
It's definitely, it's a lot harder and a lot more complex than it seems. And like you said earlier, it always seems to be the underdog to architecture. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a
misconception.
It's a misconception. I think there's always a big misunderstanding between interior decoration and interior design. And I think it's really important, particularly you're here at CUD, the students here, they learn environmental systems, they learn building codes, they learn many of the things that architects, also require in order to make their spaces meet, the minimum standards.
That's great. Okay. So I wanted to know, are there any designers that inspired you in your path?
I'm probably going to be a bit off here, I suppose, but not that the major, architects and interior designers didn't inspire me, but I think I was lucky at university to be exposed to a range of designers which have now gone on to become obviously really well known in their field. So the smaller firms are always really interesting because they have to sort of work against the larger names in the field. So Barbara Oscaby they were actually professors at my university, but they went on. I think they were really poignant at that time in my life because they were also working really hard to make it, probably sort of 10 years ahead of myself at that moment in time. So definitely there's kind of exposure to up and coming designers, I think are really, really vital at that point of your career. I mean, obviously, if you were going to look at more well-known architects or designers, probably Daniel Libeskind, I think, is probably one of the interesting, more global, renowned names.
Yeah. But I think it was more personal for you, right? Because you were able to see people, let's say, that were still trying to find their way, almost the same as you. You could relate probably as a student, and it made it feel human for you. Yeah.
I think it's more reachable, right, as a student. Often we bring in, which is obviously great as well, well-known or well-established designers. Yeah. And often you sort of look and you think, well, how on earth do you get to that point?
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you kind of reach the middle ground and bring in people which are still striving to make it and still having to work hard and still coming across the challenges, the successes and the failures, then I think it's much more sort of inspirational, if you like, at that level.
In your opinion, what do you think it takes to be a good designer?
I think it's probably too... literal to sort of say hard work and sort of be passionate about it, but there's definitely a drive. I think, for any job that you do, 5 days a week or whatever, you have to enjoy it to want to do it. But design doesn't stop when you leave the office, as much as we all like it perhaps to do at certain times. So I think you have to have a certain drive, an internal drive to kind of succeed, because, as I said, deadlines don't stop. Clients, will want you at certain points. So you have to have that desire to, kind of achieve and meet the goals and the deadlines. So probably the point where you realise this is the right industry for you, or this is the right domain to be in, that you walk into a space and you either appreciate something that's working. In reality, if a space is working, you shouldn't notice much. It should just do its job. But, you kind of notice what's working and what's don't. And I think that's probably one of the most rewarding aspects of being in education is when students finally get to that point, and they'll come back and sort of say to you, over the weekend I went to this place and I really noticed the acoustics was awful, or I looked at this and the lighting was and then you think, finally the educational lessons transfer into the real world.
It's actually so funny that you're saying this, because when I was speaking to one of your students the other day for another concept we're doing on Instagram, she said all the same things. She was like, you go into a room and you see if the acoustics are right and if the lighting's okay, and how does that make the person feel? And it was so nice because it makes you see a completely different side to it, and also that they're learning so much from you. Like, they're taking everything from the classroom and implementing it in their day-to-day lives.
I think what's also great is that we remember we are actually designing for people, and I think that might be the forgotten aspect, is the humanistic aspect of it, that we're designing for people. that people need to be in these spaces for, I don't know, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours. And so the moment you start thinking, more sort of humanistic and put the person in there, then the design should have a different quality to it, rather than just going through a process because you're told to do it.
With all of that being said, why do you think someone should pick a career in design?
I know why I did, and I often use this as an example to students. As I said, I'm not one for sitting in an office doing the same thing day in, day out for 8 hours a day. And design gives you, as I said, variety. You're not working on the same thing every day. You're juggling 2 or 3 projects. You're always out on site. You're back in, or you're meeting suppliers. You're always meeting a whole range of different people. So it's, dare I say, in the 20 years I've been in the industry, 20 plus years I've been in the industry, wow, I'm not bored of it.
When it comes to your relationships with students and just advice in this field in general, what is something that, out of everything you've ever advised them, is something that you would want to stick with them in the long run, when they finish education and go on to see their careers and futures? Yeah.
Well, you kind of highlighted earlier on, I think, but for interior design anyway, I think it's an understanding of the amount of smaller details that go into, a space, in order to make that a space which is comfortable and like offering the best quality that you could get. So it's definitely the details, and that's something within education within interior design education that they don't really come across until the latter years. And so, taking them out to industry to be able to see, for them to observe it themselves, I think that's when, as I said, there's a certain light flicked or a switch flicks where they're aware of their surroundings much more from a design perspective rather than just passing through. Design, like whichever area of design you go into, like you say, they're all multifaceted, they all overlap each other, whether you're interior designer, but definitely having a curious mind and kind of questioning or wondering why something is like that, or why it works, why it doesn't work, seeing what other people have done, and just being curious in general, I think is the best thing when it comes to design.
I think without curiosity there's no real learning, you don't have the motivation to learn. So curiosity is so important in not just design, in everything you do in life. So
definitely,
I think that's
young minds should be curious.
Yes, definitely. I think that's a lovely message that we can take away from today's podcast. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your nice advice and experience.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.